Let's begin right away. Today we're going to start Yud Ches Amud Beis Amalei Ravina Ravashi. That's about 10 lines from the bottom. It's Yud Ches Amud Beis 18b. Yesterday we learned we were discussing the opinion of Rabbi Yossi and Reb Shimon that said that liquids could make food tamei midiraisa, but it can't make kalim tamei.
Food can make itself.
Yeah, and food can make itself, right?
That was the whole.
Right. So food could make liquid can make food tamei midiraisa. Can't make kalim tamei. Where did he get this from? It said he followed Rabbi Akiva, his teacher, because Rabbi Akiva, his teacher, said that he's going to learn from the word yitma, that he's going to pronounce it yitama, and that it makes others tamei. And Rabbi Akiva's drasha was by eichel, was by food. So that means that food could make liquid tamei. So Rabbi Yossi then goes and says liquid could make food tamei. Now, in that statement of Rabbi Akiva, he said that food can make liquid tamei. We see that a sheni could make a shlishi even by chulin. Now, we didn't get into the chiddush of that. Usually, you say that a sheni is chulin, a shlishi truma can go till a shlishi, and kodesh sacrifices go till a revi. Rabbi Akiva had this chiddush that a chulin went to a shlishi as well. Okay. Now, what we're going to do is we're going to say that the fact that Rabbi Yossi is following Rabbi Akiva is not necessarily that he holds like Rabbi Akiva. It could be that he argues with Rabbi Akiva. We'll see how the Gemara is going to work on this. And then we're going to go back today to get some basic background. Where do we know that a shlishi is truma goes till a shlishi, and then and all of that, and maybe there's really a chamishi, and there's all types of but part of the besides for that. Okay. Amalei Ravina Ravashi. Ravina says to Ravashi, V'amar Rava said, Le Rabbi Yossi savak Rabbi Akiva, Le Rabbi Akiva savak Rabbi Yossi. Who started this off saying that Rabbi Akiva is B'shitas Rabbi? That Rabbi Yossi is B'shitas Rabbi Akiva Rabbi. That was Rabbi Bar Bachana Amar Rish Lakish. Ravina says to Ravashi, how could you say this? Rava said that Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold like Rabbi Akiva, and Rabbi Akiva doesn't hold like Rabbi Yossi. Which means that Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold like Rabbi Akiva, that there is such a thing as a shlishi by chulin. And according to Rabbi Akiva, I'm going to need to accept that there's a shlishi by chulin. There's a third level. Why? Because he said that the word yitma, that says by food, means that it could make others tummy as well, yitama. And that would mean that chulin makes tummy. Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold of that, as we're going to see shortly. And Rabbi Akiva doesn't hold like Rabbi Yossi, because Rabbi Yossi we're going to introduce a kal v'chomer from Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Akiva can't hold of that. We're gonna see soon what Rava meant. Amalei. So Ravashi says to Ravina, Rabbi Yossi b'shitas Rabbi Akiva Rabbi Amra v'leilei sviralei. Unbelievable. Rabbi Yossi, his whole shita before, where he said that mashkin liquids could make eichel tamei, that's not his opinion. He actually doesn't hold of that. He actually holds that liquids can't make food tamei. Either. So why did he say that it does? Oh, he was saying what his teacher would have said. So, the whole thing, really he holds that there's only tumas mashkin is only midirabanan, there's no deraisa. He said that it is midiraisa, that's Rabbi Akiva, his teacher. Amalei Ravashi l'Rav Kahana. Bishleim Rabbi Yossi le'savalak Rabbi Akiva. I get it that Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold like Rabbi Akiva, because Rabbi Akiva said that a chulin food could become a shlishi, and Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold of that. Chulin stops by sheni. That's how we're taught, Yossi, that there's a avatama a Rabbi Avos, and an Av, and a Rishon, and a Sheni, and that's it. And if it's Truma, it can go to Shlishi. And if it's but Rabbi Yossi holds that Chulin stops at a Sheni. And Rabbi Akiva had this Chiddush yesterday. So that now we're going back to discuss the source that of the statement of Rava that Rabbi Yossi doesn't agree with Rabbi Akiva. The Tanya was taught in a brayso. Amar Rabbi Yossi, Minayin l'Ravi b'Kodesh Pasal. Rabbi Yossi says, how do you know that there's a fourth level of tumah by sacrificial meat? How do we know that? We didn't know. He says we learn it from a Kal V'Chaimer. I don't know what to do with this. Come on, this is heavy, complex things. I think I should say it outside, and then we'll go through it inside. Okay, the way it works is like this: that if someone's tummy, he can't eat Meiser Sheni, he can't eat Truma, he can't eat Kachim. He goes to the mikveh. When he goes to the mikveh, he's able to eat Meiser Sheni. This is like a chalti ba'ini mimenu, right? Like chalti b'tamei or something. So, okay, now we can eat Meiser Sheni. He waits for evening. In the first mission in Brachas, he can now eat Truma, right? Herav Shemesh, he can eat Truma. He still can't eat a sacrifice yet until he brings his carbon. He's called a mechusar kippurim. Depends what type of tumah it was, but if it's a zav or something that he needs to bring a carbon, so then he's a mechusar kippurim. He has to bring his carbon. Brings his carbon, then he can eat sacrificial meat. So what we're going to learn is like this. We're going to do comparisons that are not perfect comparisons, but with this comparison, we're going to make a Kal V'Chaimer. We're going to say the first one is that a Tvul Yaim, someone that went to the mikveh but is waiting for evening, he is allowed to eat chulin, but he's not allowed to eat truma. He's allowed to eat chulin and meiser. He's allowed to eat chulin and meiser, but he's not allowed to eat truma. So, if a sheni latuma makes does a sheni make chulin pasal? Just 1 second. A sheni, which is a chulin, which is a sheni, right? So it has the tumah, the food that, okay. So again, Tvul Yaim is mutter b'chulin, but a sheni is pasal by chulin. Okay, so if a Tvul Yaim that's mutter for chulin is aser for truma, right? He didn't go, the sun didn't set yet, so he can't have truma. So a sheni that's pasal for chulin, right? So for sure should make a shlishi. For sure, a shlishi should be pasal for truma. Now there's a problem with that Kal V'Chaimer right away, because all you can say, if a sheni is pasal for chulin, then a sheni should be pasal for truma. We're taking it a step further. If a sheni is pasal for chulin, then a shlishi for sure should be pasal for truma. Now, the reason why we're able to do that, there's a rule that's called Dayal of Adin Liyiskanida. You can never make a Kal V'Chaimer anything stronger than what you started with. But the Gemara says that in this instance you can, because since the whole Kal V'Chaimer wouldn't be necessary, unless you avoid the law of Dayal of Adin. So therefore here it's going to be an exception. We're going to say that if a sheni is pasal by chulin, for sure a shlishi is pasal for truma. That is step one. All we did right here is we said we know that a sheni is pasal for chulin. Based on a Kal V'Chaimer from Tvul Yaim, we're going to say that Tvul Yaim is pasal for truma. We're going to say that shlishi is pasal for truma also. Then we're going to go further. Then we're going to say something that touches the sheni in its truma is pasal. It has a status of tamana. Then we're going to go further. We're going to say the sheni can only be a food. It can only be a food. Probably a liquid. Let's say it's easier if it's a liquid, because the food was a rishon, touched the liquid and touched The liquid became a sheni, and the sheni touches a shlishi. Well, food can do the liquid, and liquid can do food. Yeah, it always has to go on and off, unless we'll find one opinion later. Let's go a drop further in this, and then we'll go through it inside. The drop further goes like this. Now we'll do, once we have that established, that a shlishi is possible for truma, now we have another kal v'chomer. So let's look at a mechusar kippurim. Mechusar kippurim is someone that has not brought his sacrifices yet. If a mechusar kippurim, he hasn't brought his sacrifices, but the sun set already, right? He's waiting for tomorrow to bring the sacrifice. He's mutter, he's allowed to have truma, but he's not allowed to have kudshim. Okay, he's not allowed to have sacrifice because he didn't bring his own sacrifice yet to purify him entirely. He's allowed to have truma because truma comes he can have after nightfall. Mikvah waits for the end of waits for nightfall, right? Is nightfall. Then he has to wait before he can eat sacrificial meat. So mechusar kippurim, that's possible b'kodesh, but it's mutter for truma. So a shlishi, remember we just had a kal v'chomer. Shlishi that's possible for truma, which we just learned from a kal v'chomer. For sure, if shlishi is possible for truma, for sure revi should be possible for kodesh. Again, mechusar kippurim is mutter for truma, but it's possible by kodesh. Basically, what the kal v'chomer is doing is it says that it's saying that what's mutter for truma is possible for kodesh. Okay, kodesh is one step more. So mechusar kippurim is mutter for truma, is possible for kodesh. So therefore, a shlishi which is possible for truma, for sure a revi should be possible for kodesh. Right. So that's what we're going to do. We're moving it one step up. That kodesh is one step further. Now, what the issue is with this is that Rabbi Yossi can't hold like Rabbi Akiva, because if Rabbi Yossi is going to hold like Rabbi Akiva, then what's going to happen is moving one step up is going to move it to kodesh is going to be a chamishi. Why? Because Rabbi Akiva held a shlishi is chulin. Chulin goes till a shlishi. It's going to mess up everything. It's going to end up with the chamishi. So Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold like Rabbi Akiva. That's where we started this. Bishleim Rabbi Yossi leisav like Rabbi Akiva. The Tanya we have a brisa. Rabbi Yossi minayin leRabbi b'kodesh pasol. We start from the second kal v'chomer first. How do you know that a revi b'kodesh is pasol? V'dinhu. It's logical. If a mechusar kippurim, someone that hasn't brought his sacrifices, is allowed to eat truma, but nevertheless, pasal b'kodesh, but he can't have sacrificial meat because he didn't bring his own sacrifice yet. Shlishi shepasal b'truma, third level impurity, which is pasal for truma, which we had a kal v'chomer, which the Gemara didn't specify. Eine din she has to revi b'kodesh, for sure should make a revi b'kodesh. Now the Gemara explains, shlishi b'kodesh min ha'Torah. And what the Gemara is doing now is explaining why it's not going back to the old kal v'chomer yet. What it's doing is it's saying why I don't say daye levam and adin liyis kenidim, that a kal v'chomer can never tell me more than what you started with. Why don't you say that? So it's explaining like this. I know that shlishi, a third level impurity, is forbidden by sacrificial meat biblically. Urevi mikal v'chomer, and so therefore the revi has to be the kal v'chomer. What the Gemara is doing is it's saying that if you already have a biblical law, then what's the kal v'chomer teaching me? It has to be moving up one step. That's the logic that says that I don't say da'il v'am and adin liyis kenidim, because the kal v'chomer wouldn't be teaching me anything because I know that already. Seems to contradict the rule of milsa dasya b'kal v'chomer tarach b'kasav l'kra. Just because you have a kal v'chomer doesn't mean the Torah doesn't write it. It's a contradiction to that. I have to think about that. But here we're saying that if the kal v'chomer is going to teach me nothing, then I have to drop dayai and I let the kal v'chomer teach me something. It sounds like the kal v'chomer was a tradition and I need the kal v'chomer. I always thought that the kal v'chomer was logic, and the other things are tradition. Gzeira shava and all of those are tradition, but kal v'chomer was just a logical fortiori. It's this, if a weak person can lift 50 pounds, so a strong person for sure could lift 50 pounds. And Daya would tell me that he's for sure can lift 50, not 60. I don't know about 60. Okay, now the Gemara goes back to explain Shlishi min HaTorah. How do you know that a third level impurity for sacrificial meat is biblical? And therefore the Kal V'chomer needs to tell me the Revi. So first step, how do we know that that's biblical? The Ksiv says in the pasuk, "Basar sheyiga." Basar here is referring to sacrificial meat. Basar sheyiga b'chol tamei. Meat that touches anything that's tamei, and we're going to understand that tamei over here is a sheni. Why? Because we know that it could make a sheni. We know that there's a concept of even by chulin that there's a sheni. So basar sheyiga b'chol tamei. Meat that touches anything that's tamei, even including a sheni, lo yachal, cannot be eaten. Lo yachal, can't be eaten. That means that a shlishi, by kodesh, sacrificial meat that touched the sheni can't be eaten. I have a pasuk for that. So therefore, and milo yaskin and denaga b'sheni. So we said like this. Yesterday we learned that Ramesh is asking, how do you know it's not touching your rishon? So yesterday we learned that food that's in a klicheres. So we said that the klicheres becomes a rishon, and the food that's in it becomes a sheni. And why is the klicheres a rishon? Because there was a sheretz there. So the sheretz is the av, the keli is the rishon, and the food is a sheni. So I know there's a concept of sheni. Now it says habasa shiga b'chol tamei. Could be including that food that was in the kli cheres, that's a sheni. So obviously it's going to be a shlishi by kodesh. So therefore revi mikal v'chaymer kedamrinan, and therefore the revi is going to be teaching me the kal v'chaymer. The kal v'chaymer is going to teach me the revi, the fourth level, because shlishi I have from the pasuk. Now I'm going to point out that Rabbi Akiva is going to learn habasir sheyiga b'chol tamei is going to actually be teaching me that it's touching a shlishi, which makes a revi. So the pasuk is teaching me a revi that would end up being a kal v'chomer to chamishi if Rabbi Akiva would have held of Rabbi Yossi's kal v'chomer that Rabbi Yossi just did. That we're going to get back to. But okay, so we're learning that sheyiga b'chol tamei is touching a sheni. That means the shlishi is in the pasuk for sacrificial meat. That means that the revi is the kal v'chomer. We never did the kal v'chomer that shum is a shlishi. V'sal kadaita. We're concluding our question. We're concluding our introduction to the question. The question is that where do you see that Rabbi Akiva doesn't hold of Rabbi Yossi? The way we introduce that question is we say Bishlaima Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold of Rabbi Akiva. I get it, and that's what we're doing right now. V'sal kadaita savar Rabbi Akiva. If we would say that Rabbi Yossi holds like Rabbi Akiva, Nisni nami revi b'tshuma v'chamish b'kodesh, then it should say that the chulin was a shlishi. Chulin becomes tummy a third level of impurity. Truma becomes a revi, and kodesh becomes a chamishi. Okay, that's the introduction to the question. The question is, Eli Rabbi Akiva le'savak Rabbi Yossi minalan. But where do you know that Rabbi Akiva doesn't hold like Rabbi Yossi? All Rabbi Yossi did was he gave us over here he taught us a kal v'chomer, and before he told us that mashkin is metama, but mashkin is metama eichel. But where do we see that Rabbi Akiva doesn't hold to the kal v'chomer? So Amar Lei, who's talking here? This was Rav Ashi to Rav Kana. Rav Kana responds to Rav Ashi. The Leila Shtamet Tana v'lisni Revi b'tshuma v'chamish b'kodesh v'neimer Rabbi Akiva. We don't have any Mishnah. We don't find any Mishnah or Brisa that says that a fourth level of impurity would make Truma impure. And a fifth level of we don't find. To let go of. A Tana has not. But it's not. it's like forgotten. Tana of listening. Yeah, that's what it is. We don't find any Tana that taught Revi. It means forgotten to say, I think. And then we would have to say, who is it? We would say the name of Rabbi Akiva, and we would say it's Rabbi Akiva. The name of Rabbi Akiva. The Gemara says, that's your whole proof. That's your whole proof. We're going to rely on that because you never found it. Because you didn't find any brisa that says that. You didn't find. Doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. So it could be that Rabbi Akiva really holds it. Just you didn't come across it. Yeah, it's like archaeology. What you don't find doesn't mean anything. It's what you find that's it, right? We're going to rely on that because he didn't find anything. Nafak Rashi went out. Vitem Rav Kana. They were the ones that had this conversation. Dak vashkach, and they actually found it. Not that Rabbi Akiva says a fifth level of impurity. They found the opposite. They found that Rabbi Akiva says it only goes till 4. So therefore, it's clear that Rabbi Akiva doesn't hold of Rabbi Yossi's Kal V'Chomer. If he would hold of Rabbi Yossi's Kal V'Chomer, then he would have said 5. I know Rabbi Yossi doesn't. Yeah, because of his opinion. Haditanan, he found this that it was taught in the Mishnah. It says, Hakeli mitzaref es ma shebeseichei l'kodesh avaloi l'truma. It's talking about over here, if you have a basket, that's a long basket, and there's food of kodesh on one side and food of kodesh on the other side, and they're not touching each other. The keli makes it one. It's considered as if it was that everything was touched. The keli is mitzaref it to become one, but that's only by kodesh, not by truma. Okay, that's a secondary point. That's not the point that we're looking for. But then it goes on and it says, "V'aravi b'kodesh pasol v'ashlishi b'truma." 4th level impurity is for sacrificial meat, and 3rd level impurity is for truma. V'amar Rab Chia bar Abba Rabbi Yochanan me'edusei shel Rabbi Akiva nishnes mishnah zu. That this Mishnah was a testimony of Rabbi Akiva. And the Tanan, Haisif Rabbi Akiva, as it was taught, Rabbi Akiva added to this, Haseilas v'akteres v'alavayna v'agachalim, shimnaga tfil yaim b'miktasan pasal eskulan. If a tfil yaim touches the flour, I guess from a mincha, and the kteres, or the frankincense, the lavayna, or even the coals, he makes them pasal. Now, a tfil yaim is considered, I think a tfil yaim is considered a sheni. Yeah. Whatever the case is, what we're learning over here is that they all combine. They all combine, even though you only touched, the tfil yam only touched part of it, but these items are considered like food, even though katayrus isn't food, and gechalim coals are not food, but because chibas hakodesh, because they're holy, they belong to a sacrifice, it's considered as if they're food, and they have the status of food when it comes to becoming tameh, which means that the tumah will spread to them. Revi in chamishi loy, shlishi in revi loy. By sacrificial things, it's going to go till a revi, but not to a 5th. If it's by truma, it will go to a 3rd, but not to a 4th. Okay. What have we learned? That Rabbi Akiva doesn't hold that there's a 5th level of impurity, so therefore Rabbi Akiva doesn't hold of Rabbi Yossi. He doesn't hold of Rabbi Yossi's Kal V'Chomer. Okay. There's a few points here.
Once again, just say repeat again. So why doesn't that even though he holds here of Hamishi, but why would he not? And you said it, so I'm here again. Why does he not hold the Rabbi Yossi?
He can't hold the Rabbi. He does. If Rabbi Kiva would accept Rabbi Yossi's Kal V'chaimer, that I always take it a step further each level. So then his chulin went till a shlishi according to Rabbi Kiva, which would make truma go to a revi, which would make kodesh go to a chamishi. And we have clearly a testimony of Rabbi Akiva that it only goes till a revi, not till a chamishi.
Truma.
Kodesh. Truma goes till. I get what you're asking. According to, here's the issue. If I have grades, normally the way I learn is that chulin goes till a sheni, truma goes till a shlishi, and kodesh goes till a revi. That's 2, 3, 4. Chulin, truma, kodesh. Rabbi Akiva says that chulin goes till a shlishi. So what do we? And if I accept Rabbi Yossi's Kal V'chaimer, then truma is going to be a revi, and kodesh is going to be a chamishi. So we don't accept Rabbi Yossi's Kal V'chaimer. So what do? We say that truma is also a shlishi. Chulin and truma are a shlishi, and then kodesh is a revi, and that clarifies that issue. Right. I'm not sure.
Yeah, or then why are they arguing?
Because that is the most,
No. They're very, very careful to try not to have this.
Yeah, I'm not sure what the issue is. It could be because just practically, if it's going to make it till a chamishi, then it's going to spread thin. Like it's going to not spread thin. It's going to be just like such diluted levels of tuma it's going to be too difficult. I don't know. There is an issue here that Rashi, if you notice, there's a long Rashi. Rashi's dealing with what exactly is the case. So how would you get to a chamishi anyway? You would have to say that a sheretz touched the keli. The keli is a rishon. The keli touches the keli in the airspace of the keli. That's considered a sheni. That's the eichel, the food. Then liquid would be the shlishi. Now that liquid would have to touch other food to make a revi. Now, what would we say according to Reb Meir and Rabbi Elazar that held that liquid doesn't make food tummy? They held that there's no biblical, and the only way to get to this is to do on-off, food, liquid, right? Right. So we would have to say that you're right. There is no revi according to them. Even there's no such thing as revi midaraisa. It's only rabbinic, according to Reb Meir and Rabbi Elazar. Then there's another point. We said before that according to Rabbi Yossi also doesn't hold that liquid is metama food. This creates a whole issue. Rabbi Yossi only said that liquid is metama food according to his teacher, but he himself doesn't hold of this. That's the akdama. So if liquid isn't metama food, how does Rabbi Yossi have a? So Rashi suggests that Rabbi Yossi holds that food is metama food. Now, even though we said before that ein isa ki yotze bai, Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold of that. So he says, "Really, tuma isa ki yotze bai b'kadshim. V'yichol metama mashkim." Where do we have that liquid could be metama? That food could be metama liquid, according to Rabbi Yossi, if he doesn't hold of yitma, he doesn't hold of his teacher's yitma. He actually doesn't hold of his own yitma. So Rashi gives us another source for it. It was a pasuk that we learned before. Tamehu, it is tame, not other things. That means only it's not oichel, but really oichel could be matama liquid. And is he going to say that it's matama? Yeah, it creates an issue. You have to figure out each sheet how it's going to work. Okay, one of the side points that we mentioned as we're going through this is that foods get combined. If something tummy touches food, and if it's kodesh and it's in a keli, so the whole keli, everything in the keli becomes tummy. It's as if the food is all connected. Now, when Rabbi Yochanan said this over, he was talking about food that only becomes tummy midirabanan. Alma kasaver tzirif derabanan, upliga derabchanan damar tzirif deraisa. The fact that he chose this example because he's what was he talking about? Gechalam and lavaina. The fact that coals and frankincense could become tummy is only rabbinic, and Rabbi Yochanan says that if the tful yaim touches it, then everything will combine, and it's all going to be tummy. So he's choosing rabbinic tuma to say this. That means that maybe he doesn't hold that it actually combines biblically. Now he says that argues on Rav Chanan that holds tzirif deiraisa. Shenemar kaf achas asar zav mleikteres hakasavasa kol masha bekaf achas. Rav Chanan has a drasha that says that foods combining is biblical more than Rabbi Yochanan said that it's rabbinic. Okay, Tanan Hassam. Start over there. This is in Idias. Alamachat shenimtzas bebasar. If you find a needle in meat, how to get there? The cow swallowed it, and you end up finding a needle in the meat. We're gonna have to discuss how the needle is tamei and why we assume it's tamei, and whatever the case is, sha'asakin vayadayim tahiris. The knife in the hands that touched it are tahar. V'habasar tamei, but the flesh itself is tamei. No, well, we're saying that they don't become tamei for touching it, only the flesh. We shechted the animal because the needle touched the meat, and the needle was tamei. That the Gemara later on is going to discuss how we know the needle's tamei, or is it a suffix or not. Nimtzis beperesh, if the needle was found in the feces, so hakol tar, then everything is tar. It went through the system. Rabbi Akiva says zakinu shein tumas yadayim b'mikdash. We've basically merited that zakinu, that there's no hands don't become tamei. How do we see that? Because it says hasaken vayadayim tahiris. Even though there was reason to say that the hands should become tamei, and there's a gzeira that hands are tamei, but when they made that gzeira, they didn't apply it to the Beis Hamikdash. They only applied it to other places. Why didn't they apply it to the Beis Hamikdash? Very good, very good. The Gemara is going to discuss that. Why didn't they apply it to the Beis Hamikdash? Because they didn't want to have too much kadshim tamei. They didn't want to increase tuma on the. Okay, so they didn't have to make the gzeira on that. The name she'in tumas yadayim v'kelim b'mikdash. There's more than this. It's, even the sakin wasn't tummy. Why did Rabbi Kiva just say zakina she'in tumas yadayim b'mikdash? There's kelim also don't become tummy, and turns out that there was a rabbinic decree that tummy food, or tummy liquid rather, tummy liquid could make kelim tummy as well, rabbinically. Usually liquid doesn't make kelim tummy midaraisa, but there's a rabbinic decree that liquid make a keli tummy. So Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav, Yitem Rabbi Yosef bar Chanina, Yadayim Kaidem Gezeres Kelim Nishnu, which is very interesting. He says that the decree on the hands was instituted before the decree on the kelim, and when Rabbi Kiva said this, it was only instituted the decree on the hands. He didn't have to say that we merited that we didn't have the decree on the kelim because it never happened yet. The Gemara says 1 second. Amar Amarava, Vatavaya Bayim Gazru. 1 second, they were instituted on the same day. This was Bayim. This was Bayim over here doesn't mean Bayim on the day of that we learned before. It's a big chiddush. Bayim. Yeah, this says Rashi tells us that it's in the attic of Chanina ben Chizkiah ben Gurion. I don't know if you remember in the beginning of Masech Shabbos. We had 18 things that's Beis Shammai overpowered Beis Hillel over there, and they made these extra gezeres. Yeah, in not Rav Chiz, it was Hananiah ben Chizkiah ben Garin. Yeah. What do we learn over there? It says the Tanan HaSefer, that means a scroll, some sort of Torah book, Torah scroll. Doesn't have to be the Torah, it could be Nach or whatever. What happened was they used to keep their truma next to their scrolls because they didn't want anyone to make a tummy, so they put it over there. Then mice would come and eat their grain, and it would end up nibbling at the scrolls. So what they said was that a sefer actually gives off tumah. The scrolls themselves give off tumah. That way, no one would put their food in the Aron Kodesh, right? Remember that fast story. Okay. So this is one decree. Vayadayim is hands. Give off a type of tumah. It's another decree that we have. Even if you don't know if it touched anything, you always have to wash your hands before you take food, truma food. Vatvul yaim. The Gemara over there said, Sami mikan. Remove tvul yaim from this because tvul yaim is the araisa that gives off tumah. Tvul yaim is someone that went to the mikveh but needs to wait for dark. So whatever that gives off tumah, but it's not part of this list. Va'oichlen, in food, ba'kelim, and vessels, shenitmu b'mashkim. That became tummy. That became tummy with liquid. So it's all together. It was all together, that gezer. So what are you telling me that Rabbi Kiva says, there's no gezer on Yadayim in the Mikdash? And why didn't he say there's no gezer on Kalim in the Mikdash? Because Kalim was made much later. It wasn't much later. It was taught together on the same day. The Gemara says, Elam marava hanach l'tumasakin dafilu b'chul enami lamitami. Tumasakin, the sakin wouldn't become tummy anyway. We never made a gzeira. What it means, chulen, means that forget about that we didn't make the gzeira in the Beis Hamikdash. There's no decree on a sakin either. We're going to discuss why is that the sakin doesn't become tummy. It goes like this. Hi sakin denaga b'mai. What did the knife, sakin is the knife, what did the knife touch? If you say it touched the flesh, food can't make a vessel tummy. So the flesh was tummy, granted, but it can't spread from flesh to knife. So what are you going to tell me? That the knife touched the needle that was in the flesh. But a keli can't make one vessel, one utensil can't make another utensil, and the needle is considered a utensil. And okay, so therefore, based on that, we've now proven that there's no reason for Rabbi Kiva to say we've merited that there's no tumah on kalim in the Beis Hamikdash, because there's no tumah anywhere on kalim in this instance. The Gemara says, "Hi machat mayavidite." Yossi, this was you're asking. How did this needle become tamei, and this needle is now in the flesh? How do you know? Like, what are you doing? You followed this? Like, how did it happen? If you just say, well, you don't know, you just found a needle. Maybe it's tummy, maybe it's not. So let's just say it's a suffix, it's a doubt. Yeah, well, unless you can see it, the tumah, but you can see if it touched something. But over here, how are you supposed to see it? The Gemara later will give us an option for that. But right here, we're saying, no, we're saying that if we saw that it touched the sheretz, and now it's. We have a statement from Rabbi Lazar and Rabbi Yosef bar Chanina, both Amiraim in Eretz Yisrael. One says that there was no decree on spit that there was on the floor that it was possibly from a zav. You don't say that. Just because it's spit on the floor doesn't mean it's from a zav and it has that high level tumah. If you know it is, then it's tamei, but it's not regular. There's no tumah like that. So you don't say that it's going to be tamei. The other one said that you don't say that if you see a keli that it's tamei. We didn't say a suffix just because you don't know that it's tamei. You don't say that in Yerushalayim. Okay. So, and we're dealing over here with a animal that's a sacrifice. Remember, because we're talking about the needle that was in the basar, and we're saying that this basar is a sacrifice, right? Because Rabbi Kiva says that there's no tumas yadayim in the mikdash. Obviously, we're dealing with an animal that's in the mikdash that's a sacrifice. Okay. Amar Rav Yudah Amar Rav Kigain Shavad leMachat v'Tamei Meis Shavad leMachat Tamei Meis v'Kira beBasar. What happened was he had a needle that was actually Tamei Meis. The needle touched a corpse, or it touched a person that touched the corpse. And what did we say regarding metal? It takes the status of whatever it touched. It doesn't go down one level. It keeps the original status, right? So, and then he recognizes it in the flesh. That's the needle that I had that touched the corpse. So he sees it now. Rabbi Yossi Barav and Amar Kigan Sheisa Para. Yeah. Rabbi Yossi Barav and Amar Kigan Sheisa Para Chasuma Oba Michutz Yerushalayim. This is what you were saying. That in Yerushalayim itself, I don't say that it's tamei, but this was coming from outside Yerushalayim. And over there, I would say it's tamei, and now we brought it into Yerushalayim. But maybe it ate it over here. No, I put a muzzle on it. It didn't eat since it was brought into to Yerushalayim, and that's why I would say that it's tamei. Gufa, we learned before Rabbi Elazar and Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina. These two Amirayim, Rabbi Elazar ben Pedas, student of Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish, and Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina, also same generation. They discussed if you find things in Yerushalayim, is it automatically tamei just because you don't know better? One said that we don't say that spit in Yerushalayim is automatically tamei. And one said that we don't say that kelim are tamei in Yerushalayim just automatically. The Gemara asks, why do I need these two Amirayim to mention this? I have both of these statements in Mishnayos. Reikin Tanina, Kelim Tanina. The spit I have a Mishnah for, and the vessels I have a Mishnah for. And I don't need Amirayim to tell me things that Tanaim have already taught me. Reikin Tanina, where did he teach about the spit? The Tanan Kala Reikin Emtzim Yerushalayim Tairim Chutz Mishal Shuka Elyon. Any spit that's in Yerushalayim is considered tar unless it was found in the upper marketplace. Apparently, in the upper marketplace, the Tameim would go there because they needed to be separated from everyone else, like a quarantine area. So any spit that was there was considered tamei, but the rest of Yerushalayim wasn't considered tamei. So why do I need Rabbi Elazar, Rabbi Yossi bar Chanina to teach me something that was already taught? Like this chazak zav, coming to tell me that even though that I knew there was a zav that was walking around Yerushalayim, I still don't say that spit on the floor is Yerushalayim, is tamei in Yerushalayim. That's what they're adding. Kelim Tanina. What about the vessels? You also said that we have a Mishnah for that. The Tanana was taught. Kol hakelim animtzayim b'Yerushalayim. All vessels that are found in Yerushalayim. Derech yirida lebeis hatfila. Apparently, the mikvahs that they had in Yerushalayim, because of the high usage of it, they had an entrance and an exit. So you would walk down the steps into the water and walk up the steps the other way out. So if it's on the way in Crown Heights, they have mikvahs like that. Because you have to, don't waste time. You go under and you go. So if it's derech yirida, oh, that's an issue. So I guess it's just the pool area. But if it's on the steps going down, then what do you think that keli is? Then it's tamei because you were taking it in and you dropped it. He was going in with this kelim. So then it's tamei. I have a raya from that. Hada alma tahirim. But if it's anywhere else in Yerushalayim, the only place where I assume it's tamei is on the steps going down. If that's the logic that you're going to use, then you stopped short from the reading this paragraph. Ema Seifa, look at the end of the paragraph. It says derech aliyah tahirim. If you find it on the other side, on its way up, then the vessel is tahar. Hadi alma, and if I'm going to if I'm going to deduce something from that, it's going to tell me the alma tmein, that everywhere else it's going to be tamei. So basically, what you're left with is what's called diyukim saisrim, contradictory inferences. Rather, on the way in, that's going to be specific. That's precise. And the way in, it's tamei, but that means the rest of Yerushalayim is altar. Seif alav dafka on the way out is not. It wasn't precise when they said that it's going to be tar on the way out, and that was just lafuke gazaisa. That's talking about certain alleyways where there was a mikveh there, but you can't tell if it's the way in or the way out. So over there, it's going to be tamei, in that area. Okay, let's leave it here.